All right, welcome back. So today we're going to do a deep dive
Hmm.
of some really awesome healing technologies that have been out for forever, but newly and more recently being tapped into by awesome people just like our guest today. So Tom, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks.
So let's talk about healing technology. Let's talk about
Mhm.
energy. You are an energy researcher
Yes,
based specifically on a very fundamental life
yes,
force. So, what
yes,
is that? Where do we find it? How do we tap
yeah,
into it? What the heck is this? Because this is going
yeah.
to sound so hippy dippy, tree hugging, Harry Potterish, but it's legit.
It is legit. And you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's fundamental. We're working with light. Energy is fundamental. And what am I getting at? Well, it obeys the laws of science. So what I'm saying is uh, I'm going to observe immutable scientific principle. Okay, it cannot be changed. Okay, so yes, I'm a scalar energy researcher. I work with scalar energy instruments that control that fundamental life force energy. I have instruments that can harness that energy, control it, transmit that energy. And this new dimension that we're working in does not require a physical presence. It only requires your energetic presence. I work with photographs of people. I never work with people. I work with the energy field on a person's photograph or the energy field on an animal's photograph. People send me photographs of their pets, dogs, cats, horses. So this is a new science of scalar energy. It's not electricity. I work with scalar energy instruments that control that life force energy. These are fundamental laws that I follow because energy does indeed present that set of rules, that set of laws, if you will. And I only work with people by their energy field, which is found on a photograph. This is quantum healing. This is quantum science.
Yeah. So let's go through a few words. So let's break those down. So scalar
Okay,
energy and then quantum science and
sure.
quantum healing. Those are, so I know people out there, they hear it, right? They see their Natural Awakenings magazine, especially if you're in Florida, right? And, it's big down here. And there's a lot of stuff. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about quantum healing
Yeah.
from that and the whole, you are the placebo. There are energy workers, Reiki, and laying hands and all those type of things. EMDR in the more psychological field that's working with energetic shifts in the physiology. But let's break down what you're talking. What is scalar energy,
Yeah.
and what is quantum healing?
Yeah. Scalar energy is simply the energy of the sun and the stars. Again, this is fundamental energy. Well, where does that fundamental energy come from? The sun, the stars. And when we say quantum healing, we're referring to healing with that energy of the sun and the stars. Meaning what? If scalar energy is non-physical, I believe it's non-physical, then we're working with the non-physical information system of the person. We're not working with your biology. We're not working with cells. We're not working with tissue. We're working with everybody's information field or everybody's quantum makeup. So you have a biological makeup, that's true, flesh and blood. And then you have a quantum makeup, which is your energy. And that's what we're working with, your energy matrix or your energy signature. And we do that only by way of scalar energy. The best way, and I think the only way we can access your quantum field, which is a scalar field, is with a quantum instrument or a scalar energy instrument. So just let's slow down. A scalar energy instrument interfaces with your scalar energy body, your non-physical constitution. An electromagnetic instrument will interact with your electromagnetic force field. We are speaking of two different realities, two different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
For the sake of this conversation, I do not work with electricity and magnetism, hence I do not work with Newtonian physics. I work with quantum physics, or what some people call Tesla physics, or this new and emerging science, which another synonymous term, zero point energy, quantum energy, or scalar energy.
All right. So what would be the difference? So I know there's people out there who've tapped into Rife machines and
Yes.
energy frequencies. What's the similarities? What's the differences in
Very
that?
good. There are many similarities. Let's take Rife. World Rife was a genius, and the instruments that he produced, I believe, were electromagnetic instruments. And to that point, he had to work locally with people. Okay? He had to work with flesh and blood, so to speak. I have a scalar energy instrument. It's not electromagnetic, in which I can work in the quantum field at any point in the universe. Meaning what? An electromagnetic instrument, you have to be in person. A scalar energy instrument is non-local because the universe is holographic. I could work with somebody's photograph on a distant galaxy. Everything in a quantum field is interrelated or interconnected, what some people call quantum entanglement. So I want to make this clear to underscore the matter. There's two realities now. There's two dimensions. Hence, there's two outcomes. There's two definitions of science. Both are valid. Electromagnetic energy has certain principles that it follows. Scalar energy has certain principles that scalar energy action will follow. Both are distinct, both are real, both are quite different.
Yeah. So how do people, I mean, so I've studied this. So you're coming to someone who has danced in that world, and sees the value and the beauty of both of these principles. How do we talk to someone? How would you share this to someone who's like, all right, man, like that sounds cool. You're using all these great scientific words. Talk to me, and it happens, right? And more so. These things work, right? Energy healing has been part of every single world tradition since the creation of time, and healing, faith healing, spiritual healing, positive motivation, intentionality, law of attraction, right? Once people are more likely, and I'm a huge fan of the law of attraction. I've seen Esther Hicks multiple times in person, and right, people are more likely to buy into that because it's really like, well, it's about your mindset, but they don't realize that it's really about playing with energy. It's about playing with the quantum mechanics and at that level, but people don't know that. So how would you break that down for someone who's like, dude, Tom, like, sounds great. I'm glad you're making money, but this sounds a little bit, I don't know if I buy this. So how would we get there?
Yeah. Okay. Let's use this example, the human mind and the human heart. I've always said this, the mind and the heart are scalar energy vessels. Brain waves are really scalar energy in formation.
Okay.
Our heart, why does the heart beat? Our circadian rhythm is a scalar energy instruction. So I've mentioned this so many times, and I hold to this steadfast. Everybody is a scalar energy expert. Everybody has a mind. Everybody has emotions, a heart. And we are embodied with this scalar energy. We just haven't quite figured that out. How is it possible that we think? How is it possible that we're creative? Where are these thoughts coming from? What is the driving, animating force of imagination, of creativity? It's scalar energy. Scalar energy are the instructions of the universe. They also instruct our heartbeat. They also instruct our 7 chakras. And when we realize that this energy is instructive and everything in the universe receives scalar energy instructions, well, then people will start realizing that this is quite profound. And scalar energy is the animating force of all action in the universe.
So this very much aligns with the vitalism philosophy versus the mechanistic philosophy.
Yes.
And if any of my chiro or integrative medicine people out there are listening to this, obviously this is, where I've learned a lot about this, especially since I do neuroemotional technique, which is a mind body. We use kinesiology, right, and muscle testing. So the idea of vitalism is that the body has vital resources such as what you're talking about, energy, and it knows how to heal itself when the thorn is removed, and we need to remove the thorns. What are the thorns? It's toxins, it's emotions, it's trauma, poor nutrition, those things. And the mechanistic is the mind and the body are two really separate, entities.
Yeah. And that's a shame. And you're right. See, vitalism serves as the instructions. Before you do anything, you have to have instructions, intelligence, and then you build. And then you have creation. So scalar energy are the instructions, and the end result is a home, is a bone, your teeth, your genetic structure, the stars. Before you have physical creation, you have to have intelligence, instructions. The analogy that I always afford is if you're an architect and you want to build, you want to in some way have a plan, an architectural plan. Those are instructions, whether it's for a home, a church, a skyscraper. And then the final project is to build that physical edifice. Well, the same with the universe. Everything begins with instructions, intelligence. And then the intelligence will dictate the final physical form. That's rather apparent to me.
Yeah.
So scalar energy serves as the engine, the locomotive, and what follows is essentially the caboose, the final end product.
Yeah. So walk me through the process of tapping into this. So,
Sure.
one of the, as I showed you before, I have actually a scalar wave that was created by Dr. Brimhall, and Dr. Brimhall in the chiropractic community is very much into these things. And I stole this from my chiro's office because it was just sitting on the shelf. And I've been playing with it, and it's localized treatment and you can plug in different frequencies for different things. But there are other ways and other aspects that you're probably tapping into that other tools may not be. So what makes what you've created, how you've created it different?
Right. The key element is this. I don't work with electricity or magnetism. I work with the other dimension, scalar energy, in which it's a masterful intelligence, and it commands nature much more so than electricity or magnetism. In other words, if you can have oblique control over nature with electricity, you can have consummate control over nature with scalar energy. And I mean that quite literally. So a scalar energy instrument allows me to control atomic or molecular form. A scalar energy instrument allows me to balance the brain waves. And I can do that because this is a fundament. And this energy is the actual cause of brainwaves, is the actual cause of molecular structure.
Nice. So I'm going to do this, right? And I'm saying, here's my symptomology. Here's what I'm going through. Yeah. Do you need to know what someone's going through first? Or is it a reverse engineer where you can figure out in a diagnostic type of way or an assessment type of way of like, here's what's off or imbalanced? Yeah. How does that work?
Very good. I never diagnose. Why? Because the energy is all knowing. And when I'm working with this divine energy, I'll let God, this is God's animating force, decide what needs to be corrected. See, this is the beauty of my work. It does not involve human reasoning. The human reasoning went into building the instrument. The human reasoning now goes into presenting my work. The actual function of the instrument, human reasoning does not have any part. If you have a computer, you have to program it, you have to monitor it. Imagine you have a scalar energy computer that's all knowing, it doesn't need programming. A scalar energy computer does it on its own. It doesn't need a human being.
So I'm kind of seeing it going back with the computer metaphor of a defragmentation process. It's defragging what got all sorted in a not efficient way.
Exactly. So if we were receiving perfect scalar energy instructions, we would be perfect human beings.
So what gets in the way of the
electromagnetic energy?
And so we're picking that up everywhere, right? So EMFs and
yes, the perfect energy, the perfect intelligence, the perfect instruction is scalar energy. If we lived in a perfect scalar energy force field, it would be heaven on earth. There would be no sickness. You cannot die if you live in a perfect scalar energy force field.
Correct.
I'm a Christian. I believe there is a heaven. And if we go to heaven, it's a perfect scalar energy environment. Mm-hmm. There's no electricity in heaven.
Okay. So I'm processing this. I'm making sense of this. So the things that we're bumping up against, which I look at through the world of a therapist who practices integrative wellness, is those areas, right? It's emotions, toxins, nutritional deficiencies, and physical trauma, right? Those are the four bases. Right. So all of those have some type of interruption in patterns in the nervous system, in the physiology, in the biochemistry. So what you're proposing is underneath all of that, or what's supporting all of that is...
Yes. You're right, Jason. That's the effect. What you just enunciated was the effect, the end result. If we could go higher, what instructs all of that? What instructs the mind, the psyche? What instructs the emotions? What instructs our physiological being? It's instructions, energy, scalar energy. Everything begins with a scalar energy instruction. Mm-hmm. if you find somebody in perfect health, their scalar energy instructions have not been interrupted.
So how does the process work, right? So you're talking about using someone's image,
Right.
someone's picture, someone's, and
Right.
then how time frame, how does someone know
Sure.
that this is right? So let's say for me, like let's say Epstein-Barr or vasovagal cardiosyncope, and who knows whatever else is going, bad cholesterol.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would I tap into that? I'm going to use myself as a perfect example
Sure,
for that.
sure. If you visit our website, you can upload your photographs. Again, we only work with photographs, and I actually print out a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
This is my photograph. I actually print out a photograph and place it inside the scalar energy instrument. Now, what does that mean? Your photograph now is incorporated in a force field, a scalar energy force field. So I have left behind the electromagnetic spectrum. Your photograph is immersed in a scalar energy force field, allowing me to access you beyond the space-time continuum. The point is your photograph now has perfect instructions. We've left behind the electromagnetic world, which are imperfect instructions. And when your photograph is in a perfect environment of perfect instructions, we see improvement in people's health. And that is by way of people's testimonies. Now, I cannot prove this because this is a new science. There is no protocol for what I'm doing. Everything I'm doing is groundbreaking. It's never been repeated. I'm the only one in the world that I know of that's doing this. So I can prove my work in my laboratory, but eventually scientists and lay people are going to have to prove this out in the field by way of their exposure to these sessions.
So what is it about the photograph? Because I've known of other processes that have done this before, and I know that there's right when you're doing thermography for they're right in the mammograms. I know there's people who go and they do that versus the the other way, the other diagnostics. What is it about the photograph that when it's no longer me, right? You and I are talking to each other digitally, so you're seeing a digital interpretation of me on the screen that at least I think it looks like me, and you think it looks like me too. We're right, so we're one step removed there, but we're interacting with that, we're engaging with it. Right. You're now taking a snapshot of that, and then not only taking a reprint of a reprint, but then you're printing up a reprint of a reprint. Right. So on a from your perspective, and I'm intrigued by this. How does that actually tap into me as an essence when it's a reprint of a reprint of a reprint?
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't matter how many times the photo has been reprinted. It still contains your signature. So this is the key with the scalar energy environment. Your signature is unique. And no matter if your signature is found in a magazine or you emailed me your signature, your photograph, as long as it's a photograph, it contains your essence. And this is the all-knowing character of scalar energy. It will look at any photograph in the world and ascertain its essence or its signature. This is the infinite intelligence of scalar energy. On any given day, today in my laboratory, for instance, I had at least 500,000 photographs in my instrument. Did I dictate where that energy would go, how that energy would interact? No. It's a divine energy in which I can work with 500,000 photographs simultaneously, and the God energy will send out the instructions to each person's domain, to each person's signature as God sees fit. I can't underscore enough how this is out of my control. This is a divine energy, and all I have to do is operate the instrument, and the energy carries out the function.
So the way I'm seeing this in my mind is that anybody who's ever done any type of energy healing or Reiki, that this is just doing that on a massive scale.
Yes. When somebody who has healing hands can lay healing hands upon you and you're healed or you feel better, that's a one-to-one administration. Scalar energy is healing hands.
Right.
In my laboratory today, I had at least 500,000 photographs that I treated with scalar energy. And in some way, God has healed those people through the photograph. Am I the healer? No.
Right. It's a facilitation of, and that's really what anybody who gets healing and is me as a therapist. I think I'm a pretty good therapist because I have a waiting list in my practice, but it's not
Yes.
me, right? I'm just asking the right questions for them to tap into their own innate wisdom that they always
Right.
knew all along if they didn't get stuck in their own way, right? Sometimes I'm kicking them in the butt a little bit, but I'll take blame for that and responsibility for that. But at the end of the day, I do believe from a vitalistic perspective that, we pick up gunk along the way,
Yes.
whether
Yes.
it's family of origin stuff, whether it's cultural stuff, gender stuff, politics, whatever BS that
Mm.
we're picking up along the way. And that blocks us from serving our higher purpose, especially when we no longer decide to choose what our higher purpose, higher mission and
Yeah.
process is.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and you're right. See, in the electromagnetic spectrum, you're still on a one-to-one basis. You're still bound by time and space. In my scalar energy environment, my laboratory, I can work with 500,000 people by way of their photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Time and space are no impediment.
So can someone get this type of equipment for themselves? Is that patent pending, so to speak, or is this like, right? How do we tap into it? Obviously you're a practitioner of this and you're a creator and facilitator of this. How does someone jump on the bandwagon? How does someone, besides the healing process of facilitating through you, if someone's like, hey, this is my jam, I'm down with this. How does that work?
I'm not in the position to manufacture instruments, and frankly, I won't in the future. Mm-hmm. There's too much to learn, and the energy can be misapplied or misused. Okay, so I don't want to take that onus on. I don't want that responsibility. Eventually, you're going to have a scientific group that accepts this science, then promulgates it, has this science accepted by academia, or at least by the lay people, the general public. And then you could start an industry around this. I'm not in the position to do that. I don't have the time and money. I'm one person.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time and money. I don't come from money, to be blunt. So where is this going? Well, my projection is this is a grassroots movement with me. Now, what other people want to do, what other groups want to do, I encourage them to get into the science. But to be quite candid, I don't want corrupt governments and corrupt corporations involved. So I'm going to keep this grassroots.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only thing I'm thinking from the scientific perspective, Dr. Andrew Newberg, who was formerly at Penn, now at Jefferson and Philly, does a ton of research on his whole thing is actually neurotheology, what happens to the brain and body during religious and spiritual healing experiences, and actually scientifically, as a neurologist, as one of the that's his area of study. He's been on one of my previous episodes, and he was also doing the brain imaging for the neuroemotional techniques, clinical research when we were dealing with PTSD, specifically using NET for people who've had PTSD from cancer diagnosis, pre and post brain fMRIs. So I know that there's awesome research on this because the modality that I practice was not yet clinically researched and published in the Journal of Cancer Survivorship, which is one of the top journals, until, like you said, it's not there yet, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Yes, you're right. Now, this is Tesla energy. If you look at the career of Nikola Tesla, later in his life, Tesla was creating, if you will, perfected scalar energy instruments. And he wanted to, if you will, manufacture this energy and provide free energy to mankind. So this goes back at least 100 years ago, where Tesla had Tesla instruments. He was about to introduce free energy to the world, but the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers did not want that. So does this have a history? Yes. This is suppressed technology.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. Right. So we can get into the politics of that and the geopolitical stuff. So yeah. So good. And now people, again, so I know you're saying like if people were interested and people want to tap into this, how would they go about doing that?
In order to introduce a new concept, I think it's best that I give away free sessions. My website has 15 days of free sessions. Send in your photograph. You can email us just a face shot. All we need is your bust shot. And we'll provide 15 days of a chakra balancing, a microbe identification and cleanse, and a nutrient program. Scalarlight.com. That's the only way I can get this out there, by a website open to the general public, free sessions to everybody.
Awesome. So you guys got that, scalarlight.com. If this is down in your wheelhouse, down your rabbit hole, something you just want to be like, well, for craps and giggles, let me try this out for a few days and see if this is, and for those of you who are interested in this, right, this is just another amazing way that are the innateness, the, as a therapist, I didn't grow up with this stuff. I didn't grow up with, and even in the world of therapy and mind, body, and healing, like it's become much more evolved than things that weren't even able to be, like hypnosis was the big thing for when I was, when I was in graduate school, and to get trained in hypnosis was a big deal. And now how we've moved further along in the last 10, 15 years into other modalities that are creeping its way into the traditional, so to speak, therapy world. So I'm really excited to have had this conversation with you today.
Thank you. You're right. It's a new and emerging science. It has such promise. Nikola Tesla was right, people. You've heard of that great mind. Tesla developed free energy devices, and that's why this has been suppressed over the past 100 years.
Yeah. Well, just alone the geopolitical paradigm of what would happen with certain nations, where their whole issue is, right, they're funding oil and all the things that, right. I mean, it's just interesting to see the overlapping of politics and healing and energy, and we can go both ways. I happen to be, into very integrative and functional medicine and vaccinated. I have the best of both worlds, and I know people have they're all one way or all the other way, and I like the both so I'm into all of this cool stuff. Right.
Be logical.
Right. So, I like the both and theory. Like, this could sound ridiculously absurd, but try it anyway. Especially, 15 days free. What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen in 15 days? You feel better. Yeah. And, so I like that approach and challenging people to just try something a little bit different. And hence why I love having guests such as you.
Thank you.
All right.
Splendid conversation. You're an expert. As is your audience. This is not difficult when you realize that there's two outcomes. There's two energies.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, it's we usually look at things only through that lens, because that's the lens that traditional society, we're taught and we're aggregated through that. And then once you start getting into more of that, like, again, I'll call it the hippy dippy down the rabbit hole, stuff, then you start like, well, wait, I never learned, I was taught quantum science or quantum mechanics in college. I could have taken that course, but they didn't tell me that it was spiritual. They didn't tell me that healing is connected to it. They didn't tell me that all of this quantum, oh no, that's only for those, tree huggers. That's not actual legitimately, real, but it is. So good stuff. All right, Tom. Well, guys, check it out. If you want to follow on his website as well, there's a bunch of links to the social medias, all those different platforms. There's some YouTube videos and all of that. But again, scalarlight.com. And Tom, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, sir.